What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So, I haven't done a currently reading video in a while. I figured this is a good time to drop a currently reading video. I don't think I've ever done a winter currently reading video, so I figured why not? Let's talk about 5 series that came out in 2024, and this will also be the last video that I drop in 2024. And then my next video after this is going to be my tour video where I go around the whole room and talk about all the different manga that I have on the shelves. So if you're not subbed to the channel, this would probably be a good time to sub so that you don't miss out on my tour video. I think I have well over 1,000 volumes of manga at this point. Alright, so let's get to the reason that we're all here, and that's to talk about some manga. We got 5 volumes of manga right here, and I enjoyed every one of them. Halfway through, at least 3 of them. 2 of them I ended up finishing because this video ended up coming out a little later than I would have liked. A bunch of stuff happened and I got set back, but let's knock this thing out. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you've read any of these series, I would love to know what you think about them. Let's fan them out real quick. And yeah, this is my currently reading. Alright, so right off the bat, we've got Tank Chair by Manabu Yashiro. Tank Chair is a wild series. This reminds me of like a whole heap of different things. But before I start talking about what it reminds me of, let's talk about what this actually is. Tank Chair is a story about a dude named Nagi Daida, who at one point in time in his life was an assassin, sort of a character. He ends up taking a bullet to the dome. However, his little sister has found a way to create like a synaptic response within him. Like anytime his life is put in danger, he comes back to, like, he's paraplegic, as you can see right there. He's paraplegic. He lost the use of his legs, but he does come back, from being a vegetable and goes on a rampage essentially, and, beats the hell, or not really so much that, but like just straight up annihilates anything and anyone that is a threat to him. He starts seeing red and he ends up just taking out all opposition in a no-holds-barred sort of a way. Super gory, super action-packed, super nonsensical as well. Like, this isn't like a deep, meaningful story. This is just balls-to-the-wall action, you know what I mean? It's a lot of fun, and it reminds me of, other media. Like, it reminds me of, it makes me think of, like, Road Warrior a bit, the Mad Max film. Kind of makes me think of Turbo Kid. I don't know if any of you all have seen Turbo Kid or even know about it, but that's a great film. Definitely inspired by like the Road Warrior, Mad Max sort of a thing. Even like Hobo with the Shotgun's another one that Tank Chair kind of makes me think of. And there's a lot of different wild sorts of films and whatnot. Like Death Race 2000 is another one that sort of comes to mind when I think of Tank Chair. But overall, I'm not finished with this volume. When I do these currently reading videos, like I'll read like halfway through a volume and then, kind of write my thoughts on that volume, and then I'll present my thoughts, in this video. But what ends up happening with this series is that Nagi's little sister, Shizuka, tries to find different ways in which she can create, I guess, like a synaptic response, within his brain, within Nagi's brain, and she will essentially hire like hitmen and whatnot to go after him so that he is brought back, like in a sense, like his danger meter goes up and he comes back too and tries to fight for his life. And he's put into different, precarious situations. Like at one point in time, he faces off against like these genetically mutated or whatever monkey men. He fights a dude who's like an assassin. He has like chameleon eyes, who Shizuka recruits in like a bowling alley. And when she meets up with this dude, he's like blowing the fingers off of like some businessman or whatever. And he's pretty much like this like really unhinged sort of a character. Even the monkey dudes, they're like a whole gang. and they're all pretty unhinged. Their boss is like this gigantic, freakish, monkey-looking dude, and Nagi has like different chairs that he uses to take on different enemies. Like against the monkey boss, he converts over to a chair that is like a siege tank sort of a thing. As he takes on the sharpshooter dude, his chair like essentially bolts itself to the ground to center Nagi, so he doesn't, so he doesn't move when he fires a return, I guess rifle round or whatever, back at the sharpshooter. Like, so his chair doesn't, so his chair doesn't move or whatever. But it's a pretty wild story, and right here, there's a little sister right there. There's Shizuka. So I do like that there is a little bit of a human sort of element to Tank Chair, in that Shizuka is doing all of this because she wants her big brother back. And you see her in different parts where she's pretty much alone, like he, I think, is like at this hospital or whatever where they're keeping him. And then she pretty much just lives alone because, he is at the hospital because he's a vegetable and he needs pretty much consistent attention and whatnot. They need to take care of him. And she, being like a teenage girl, doesn't have the ability to, look after her big brother. So she just keeps looking for different ways to try to jumpstart him, to try to get him back to normal, and so far it hasn't worked. And given that there's a volume 2 and there might be even more, subsequent volumes, chances are it's probably going to take a long time, especially if this is a series that went on for a while, to, get him back to just being fully alert, because he's not gonna walk again. Like, his legs are completely done for. But at least, Shizuka will have her big brother back. And I really like the character designs for this series. The artwork is solid, as I said. It's like super unhinged. Just absolutely wild artwork. Like, if you're ever like in a bookstore or whatever and you get the chance to just flip through it, I definitely highly recommend doing so because of how just over the top the artwork is. It's definitely something that you should just read for fun. You're not going to get anything deep or meaningful from reading this, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I like reading stories that are just fun, that don't have like a message and aren't really trying to preach anything. But I do like those stories too. I like stories that do have like a message and that are trying to like, convey a sentiment or whatever. But I also think that you should also just be able to read stuff where you can just turn off your brain. You can just turn off your brain and just go, yeah, that was a fun read. So yeah, I definitely say to check out Tank Chair if you're a fan of like, if you're a fan of like Mad Max, Road Warrior, or like Death Race 2000, or even like Turbo Kid, or just like super unhinged, nonsensical stories, I think that you will be a fan of Tank Chair. Alright, so next up, we've got Versus. This is by One, and it is drawn by Kyotaro Hazuma, and it's organized by Bose. I had to look at what an organizer does. Because I have never in my life heard of an organizer, but I guess it's somebody who does like background stuff and like does like buildings and whatnot. I'd never heard of that term before. I'm assuming that's kind of like an assistant or something, or the person Bose acts like sort of like an assistant, but I'm not 100% certain on that. But yeah, that is interesting that is a thing that, that is a thing that an organizer does. So, I mean, I feel like, why not learn something new every day, especially if it's something that you didn't, already know. So, Versus is a lot of fun. This series is basically, there is this world, this fantasy world, and obviously in a lot of these, like, anime, manga, fantasy worlds, there's always, like, a demon lord, and then within this story, there are 47 demon lords, and then there is a demon king. And pretty much with the demon lords in this, there are 47 demon lords and 47 heroes. And pretty much each hero has to fight a demon lord. So Hero 1 fights Demon Lord 1, and so on and so forth, and our lead in the story is a dude named Hallow, which is that dude right there, and then that back there is his brother Zabi, and Hallow fights the 11th Demon Lord. Hallow is the 11th hero. There's like we meet a bunch of the different heroes and whatnot in this story. Like at the beginning of the manga, it starts to kind of like rattle off names of these different heroes, but they don't matter. They don't matter because a lot of them are gonna die, and it's pretty much like Hell's Paradise. If you've ever read Hell's Paradise, we're introduced to like this plethora of characters, and then half of them don't even matter because like by the end of it, we have like what 5 or 6 prisoners or whatever that end up. I mean, by the end of Volume 1, not by the end of the story, but by the end of Volume 1 of Hell's Paradise, we have like like 5 or 6 like 5 or 6 of the prisoners or whatever that are left that go to this island. So I mean, it's kind of like the same thing with Versus, but I don't think Versus is nearly as brutal as Hell's Paradise. I think this is like a ton more fun than Hell's Paradise. Hell's Paradise is like super miserable. It's a great story though. It's really well drawn. I haven't watched the anime. I don't know if I'm ever gonna watch the anime, but I love the manga. Like I'm a big proponent for manga because I feel like the manga sometimes is so gorgeously drawn, and then the anime. I'm not speaking about Hell's Paradise. I'm just saying in general. Sometimes I feel like the anime kind of doesn't look that pretty, and I feel like it takes away a lot of the incredible artwork that some of these mangaka make. You know, like a lot of that's lost in translation from, you know, page to screen. Well, this story is a lot more fun than anything, though it does have moments that are a little more, I guess, serious, if you will. However, I really like the artwork for the story. I feel like Yotaro Azuma has absolutely killed it with, you know, bringing this thing to life, you know, bringing one's pretty wild, I'd say ambitious even, vision to life, and I feel like they make a pretty good pair. There's definitely like, even though it's not the same creator, you know, that draws One Punch Man. I'm not sure who draws One Punch Man. I'll put whoever draws One Punch Man right here. Even though it's not the same, you know, the same mangaka, there is definitely like a similar sort of artwork style, you know. I don't know if that's just because, you know, one kind of likes, even with, you know, like Mob Psycho 100, you know, though that kind of almost looks similar as well within the art style. I'm assuming he kind of just wants like all the characters from all these different worlds to kind of more or less, you know, have a similar sort of a look to them. So I think that's pretty cool. So Hallow in this story with this sword right here, which is a sword that is supposed to help him take on demon lords, and it's a sword that was specifically crafted to essentially slay a demon lord. He goes off to fight his demon lord, a dude named Jachi, if I'm not mistaken. This sword right here is the sword of courage, and I'm going to spoil a little bit of this, but it's like the beginning part of it. If you don't want to be spoiled on it, I completely understand if you want to skip ahead a little bit. But it's not like a huge spoiler. I'm not going to spoil the ending because I'm not even halfway through it yet. I'm like halfway through it. But he goes to this place where he's going to fight Jachi, the demon lord Jachi, and he gets there, and his crew that he went there with, he has like a wizard, knight, or whatever. He's got a bunch of different, I think he's the knight. He's got a bunch of different like party members, and then he's got this little flying pig thing right there is his fairy. Its name, whatever, is Pane, and it's like a total coward. Pane is like a total coward, and pretty much all the way, you know, to get to the palace or whatever, where they're gonna fight the demon lord Jachi, which I think is actually that dude right there. On their way to fight, you know, this demon lord, they fight like just waves and waves and waves of enemies, and by the time they get to the demon lord, they're exhausted and whatnot, and they still have to get into the castle to fight this dude. And when they get there, they are just surrounded by tons of like demons and whatnot, and he tries to face off against this demon lord. The demon lord even gives him a free swing. You know, he lets him pretty much, yeah, get a free shot in. And when he hits him with this sword, the sword literally breaks in half against this demon lord Jachi, which pretty much shows that these swords were completely useless. And it's pretty wild because, like, for the most part, a lot of the other heroes fail in their quests to take out their demon lords. And I don't think, as far as I know at the part that I've been, I don't think any of them actually won yet. None of them have beaten their demon lords. Even the guy that was like supposed to be the guy that was going to take out his demon lord ends up losing, and they get either killed. I think one guy gets taken captive, or a few of them get taken captive. One of them goes crazy or something. Like a lot of different stuff happens to these different heroes that were on their way to fight these various, these 47 demon lords. And Jachi ends up pretty much just completely destroying this dude's crew. Hallow and Pane Pane are the only ones that survive the encounter. And then after that, he's saved by his brother Zabi. His brother Zabi is I guess I want to say like a mage or a magician or whatever. And there's like a flashback to when Hallow and Zabi were kids, and Zabi is showing Hallow how magic works, and like showing him this sort of, I want to say almost like transmutation sort of a circle, where like he can, I don't know if that's the correct word for it or not, or teleportation circle or whatever, where like there's an apple on a tree and he's going to pull that apple from the tree and make it appear in this circle that he's made. But it's like a recreation of the apple and isn't the exact apple. And if he does any part of it out of sync or whatever, if he does any part of it wrong, the apple that appears in the circle will not be the apple from the tree, and it'll be like a replica of that apple, but it'll be like rotten. And then the original apple will still be hanging from that tree. And he's like explaining, how this works to Hallow, and Hallow's just like, I have no idea what you just said to me. But it's really, well, it's really cool, dude. And I think it just speaks to, one's just super infinite capacity to make these absolutely wild stories, and I absolutely just love it. He's got a new one too that just came out that I'm probably going to do a video about in 25, and I'll post it right there, the new story that he's got going. I haven't started reading it yet, but I do want to. I've just been so swamped, and it's like a never-ending thing on this channel. I've just got so much stuff going on between work and then doing this, and then I also write books and whatnot, so I'm always busy. But pretty much after he's saved by his brother, the story enters like this whole other sort of arc where it just becomes something completely insane. I don't want to start spoiling too much of this story, but what I will say is at one point in time, I think it's on the back too, like it's on the back cover, so I mean, it's not like a gigantic spoiler, but I will say that it turns into Halo at one point in time. So that was pretty wild. There is a little bit of like if you've ever seen the anime Gate, that's kind of what it reminds me of. It makes me think of Gate. I kind of wouldn't even be surprised if Gate was an influence to some extent, because there is a similarity to that. But what's hilarious is that there's this sort of like portal or whatever that's opened, and there are these two forces, that are suffering from different things, on this side, in this fantasy world. They have one threat, and then on the other side of this sort of portal, these other people have their own sort of threat. I'm not going to go into it, just so you can find out for yourself as you read the volume. But they have their own sort of a threat, and each one expects the other to help them with their threat. And it's hilarious, dude, the misunderstanding, and it's just absolutely great. And seeing these characters sort of like try to figure out each other's problems and then help each other out, and seeing how like one's technology works against the creatures or whatever from the other's world, kind of does, more damage than what they were using originally in that world. So it does kind of have like that crossover. That crossover does, kind of have, a solid effect, for both sides, though it is kind of a fleeting effect. It kind of makes me think of like One Punch Man, like there's that character Moomin Rider who just gets beaten down, like severely beaten down, like he should be dead from the amount of damage he's taken, but he just gets back up anyway. It kind of reminds me of like Roddy Piper. Like in the 80s, there was this wrestler named Roddy Piper, and as he was getting beaten down. I might not be able to show you clips from this because I feel like it'll probably get claimed, but I'll just show you a picture of Roddy Piper. But like, there's like, he would just get beaten down and he's like getting up. These people in the stands would shout, Roddy, Roddy, Roddy. You know, in the stands, they would shout his name and he would like get up and just get back into the fight as he's being beaten down. And that's kind of like what Moomin Rider makes me think of. And Hallow in this is kind of like a Moomin Rider where he's fighting a battle that's just like there's no way in hell he's going to win. And Jachi pretty much by breaking his sword shows him that it's a battle that's just like impossible. He's like, if you can't beat me and I'm just the demon lord, how are you going to beat the demon king? You know what I mean? So it's a pretty wild story, and the introduction, that's like almost halfway through it, we were introduced to like this other side, you know, like where this portal thing sort of opens up. We're introduced to this whole other side, and it makes the story so much more wild, and something that I really didn't expect because I didn't read the back or anything. I really don't always read back panels. I just kind of like will pick it up because I like the artwork or because I recognize a name. Like in this case, you know, One. I knew it was One, so I wanted to check it out because of that. Or even if it wasn't One, I would have still checked it out because I like that artwork. Artwork like really piqued my interest. So yeah, this is a ton of fun, dude. I don't want to talk too much more about it because if I do, I feel like I'm just gonna start getting hard into spoilers, and I don't want to do that. What I will say is, given that it is One, it's a ton of fun. You know, you got characters that are essentially overcoming adversity and got to work together with these beings from this other world. And just absolutely bananas. Super fun story. I know I say that word a lot. I think that's the first time I say it in this video, but just absolutely wild story. Ton of fun. Definitely recommend it if you want something that has heart. That is, I'd say, pretty smart, I think. Definitely smarter than me. This is a good one. I love One. I'll support anything that One does, even though I don't own any One Punch Man or Mob Psycho 100. I'm definitely a fan. You know, like I've watched the animes for both series, so I'm definitely a fan of the work that One has done. And yeah, definitely. If you've read this, or if you read Sanctuary, I would love to know your thoughts. All right. So next up, we've got After God, and this is by a creator named Sumi Eno. This is a series that I was interested in. You know, I talked about this in one of my videos. I think it was in my manga I'm looking forward to, or whatever video that I'd done. I don't even know when. I think last year or something. That was supposed to come out this year. I don't even fully remember, to be honest with you, but I think I do remember talking about this in a video, like where I was talking about manga that I was looking forward to being released. This is absolutely solid. I know I mentioned Hell's Paradise already in this video, but I feel like this has way stronger of a connection to Hell's Paradise than Versus does. This is a story in which there are these beings that came out of like the ocean or whatever, and they're referred to as gods, and they're just absolutely gigantic, towering beings. And basically, if you get too close to one of them, you will die. Like your body turns into like water or whatever, and you die. So you want to like pretty much not be anywhere near one of these gods. And like a bunch of different parts of Japan like shut down. Like Tokyo shut down. I think Shibuya shut down. Saitama Prefecture. I don't really know that much about prefectures in Japan, but I know like the Saitama Prefecture in Japan, in this universe, you know, is shut down and cordoned off or whatever. Not so much cordoned off, but like sectioned off with like these huge walls so that people like can't go into these like essentially like these danger zones where these giant gods are, you know, centered or whatever. But this being the sort of like unhinged world, there are people that worship these gods, and some of these gods even like bestow sorts of superhuman powers on some of their followers. And I'm halfway through this one right there. See my bookmark. So within this story, we have, in the beginning of it, we're introduced to like 3 different characters. So we're introduced to Sachiyuki Tokinaga and Waka Kamikuri. And Sachiyuki Tokinaga is this dude who works for this anti-god research institute or whatever. And but he's also like a vet. He's a veterinarian, and it kind of makes sense, because later on you meet this like weird sort of talking cat creature that was like genetically engineered at this place that he is a researcher at or whatever. But pretty much like within this world, there are ways to sort of circumvent being manipulated by one of these gods. And one of those ways is that he wore a mask. Like he wears this mask that's really wild looking, kind of makes me think of like a Mediterranean sort of a mask. And then like you wear like facial gear or whatever to cover your eyes, and basically you want to cover your mouth and nose and whatnot so that you don't breathe in the essence of these gods in this world. And this is kind of like what they look like right here. This is somebody in the story. I'm not going to say who this is because I don't want to start spoiling too much of it, but this is kind of what they look like. And you even see like within the first page or two, like when you open this volume, I might just show you like what one of them looks like, because you pretty much see them like as soon as you open the volume, you see one of these gods, and they're just absolutely like gigantic, like Godzilla-esque beings that are just mammoth, you know what I mean, like gargantuan. These wild sorts of, almost want to say eldritch, unknowable old ones, sorts of creations that who knows, how they were spawned, when they were spawned, if they've just always, sort of been around. But Tokinaga and Waka end up meeting because Tokinaga sees Waka standing in front of one of these like sort of I don't want to say pillars or whatever, like, because like it's all sort of sectioned off, and she's kind of staring into this no-go zone, this danger zone, and he's kind of like doing his rounds, seeing what's going on, seeing if he catches anybody out in the wild, and he sees her, and he pulls like this rope out of his mask, and like literally whoops her ass with it. He literally like spanks her ass with this rope that he pulls off of his mask. And she thinks that he's a pervert at first, but he kind of explains to her that she can't just be hanging out in front of these zones without a mask or without the face shield, because she could breathe in the god's essence or whatever, the god's breath, and if she does that, she will fall under the god's control, and then it will essentially turn her into water and she will die. We end up meeting another character like almost right away, this other character named Yon, and Yon essentially, like as soon as she's introduced, assaults Tokinaga and takes Waka with her. And when she takes Waka, she tries to get Waka to her side and says like, I was given superhuman abilities by one of these gods. Yon's parents had sold her into, I guess, like slavery, and she was going to unplug herself rather than let herself be sold into slavery. And this woman, who is like a disciple for this particular god, we don't learn what god it is, but this woman, because there's 6 gods altogether that came out of the ocean that they know of or whatever, but this woman that works for one of these 6 gods tells Yon that she will bring her in and make her disciple as well for one of these gods. She has to give herself fully to this god and whatnot. And Yon agrees, and she ends up gaining like the superhuman ability, and she grows like 2 extra arms, and looks like kind of like Goro from Mortal Kombat. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how she ends up looking, and she tries to convince Waka to help her kill Tokinaga, or not help her kill him, but to kill him as her initiation into this I guess group of subservient, these people that are subservient to this god or whatever. And that's pretty wild, that's it's kind of like their initiation. You got to kill somebody to become part of this organization. Waka at first agrees to do this killing, and once she agrees to kill that dude, they go back to where he's at, and right when Waka is going to kill him, she actually turns the tables and swings on Yon, when Yon like catches it and kind of breaks her mask. And like more stuff happens from there. It gets kind of wild, but we end up learning more about Waka, and it kind of turns out Waka isn't just some ordinary teenage girl, because like Waka is like a teenage girl, and she's at this zone because she's trying to figure out what happened to her friend. A friend of hers went missing, wanting to go meet a god. And we do learn, what happened with her friend later on in the story, but I'm not going to get too into that because I don't want to start spoiling it, obviously, because I want you all to read these things. So there's no point in me, telling you everything. I can't tell you that I want you to read a thing and then like tell you everything that happens. So even, what I'm talking about, dude, it's like not even, it's like halfway through this thing. So there's a bunch of stuff that's still yet to come. But I like to build up, kind of what's going on, and it gets good from there. I'm not going to say what else happens, but there's a bit of action, and there's definitely something going on with Waka that I was not expecting, and that it definitely turns the tables. But I mean, if you read the back, you'll learn right away that there's something up with Waka. I don't ever read these, dude, because like they give you so much information, and it's like you want to learn this stuff as you're reading the volume. For me, like I really don't ever read the back panels. I just kind of like, I like to go in blind, because in that way, like when I talk about a series, like I can give you my opinion, and it's not, somebody else's words that I'm regurgitating, which is one of those things where like I always used to say a lot on this channel that like I really don't watch other manga tubers, because I don't like the idea of having someone else's words in my mouth. Like if I watch somebody else talk about a thing, I feel like I'm going to have their words in my mouth when I talk about it. And I'd like to just read something myself and not have somebody else's ideas, that they compared it to this or they compared it to that. And that's why like I make so many film references when I talk about these things, because like that's my sort of background. Like I love movies and whatnot. Like I've consumed tons of films, and I just love comparing things to film, because like I feel like even some of my favorite mangaka are avid film watchers. Like Datsuki Fujimoto was like a massive, film enjoyer, and there's a lot of references to film in his work, and even other manga series creators and whatnot, do reference, film in their stories and whatnot. And yeah, After God is really well drawn, absolutely solid mangaka work here, dude. I feel like this dude put a ton. This person, I'm sorry, because I don't know if this is a dude or not. This person put a ton of effort into bringing this to life. The designs of the characters, the masks, and whatnot, just look exquisite. Everything about it, absolutely gorgeous. I'm really glad that I picked it up, because it has been an absolute blast to read, and I really want to see what comes next. And I'll probably end up ordering volume 2. I don't know if volume 2 is out yet or not, because I think this just dropped in November, so I don't know when volume 2 is going to drop. There's a lot of lore too, so like you have to pay attention when you read this thing to like all of the lore dump. Like there's a lot of lore, that is introduced in this world, so it's not something that like you can just kind of like pay half attention to. Like you got to pay attention, to what you're reading, to not, miss out on things, and then later on you're like, wait, what? But yeah, definitely a solid read. If you've read this, I would love to know what you think about it. Alright, so up next, we've got one that really caught me by surprise, and this is Kingdom of Quartz. This is by Bomb Hat. I'm not really sure how that name is pronounced, but I'm not even sure if this is a Japanese creator or not, but this story went from 0 to 100 extremely fast. Like, it totally caught me off guard. I was not expecting it to take the tonal shift that it did. So pretty much what we do with Kingdom of Quartz is we follow this girl right here, whose name is Blue. And Blue is this young, orphaned girl, and she lives in this orphanage with a bunch of other children. And the thing with this universe is that they are all angels or Celis. There was this event like 1,000 years ago where this figure called the Goddess split the world into two, the dark and the light, and demons were cast into the dark, and angels and whatnot, or Celis, were given the light and whatnot. And there is this kingdom that was created, which is the kingdom of Quartz, and Quartz runs on this sort of mana or whatever called Solus, and Solus pretty much powers everything. It powers the kingdom. It exists within, these angels and whatnot, these beings that live within this world, these Celis, and it gives them the ability to use magic. It gives their wings the strength to fly. However, if they were to use too much of this Solus, it could be detrimental and they could potentially die. Kind of reminds me of Attack on Titan a little bit, in that there's like districts and whatnot. There's like 4 districts and 4 families that, oversee each district. And then there's like at the very front of it, there is like a sort of like floating, I don't want to say spire or something, like right in the center of everything of this world, because like Blue, I think in her orphanage, I think they live like at the center of it. They're like right in the middle, and that first district, and then the 4th district is all the way, at the end. And in the like 1,000 years of, this kingdom being founded or whatever, no demon has broken through that, 4th wall. So obviously a demon's going to break through that wall, and then all hell is going to break loose, because there would be no story otherwise. Before all that, because we get Blue in her day-to-day life, she's going to school and whatnot, she's hanging out with her friends, and it's really like jovial, really cute and innocent and whatnot. And then like, I don't even know how many pages deep, I'd say like maybe like 10, 20 pages deep, all hell just breaks loose. And then what's funny is like, I didn't read the back, because like I've said this 100 times already in the same video, like I never read the back. But what's funny is like, it says right here, for fans of Puella Magi Magica, Madoka Magica. So when it's in right there, Madoka Magica and Witch Hat Atelier. Let's see if you can read that. And then also Witch Hat Atelier. I haven't read Witch Hat Atelier, so I don't even know if that series is dark as all hell. For all I know, it is like super dark. I have the first 2 volumes of Witch Hat, but yeah, this definitely caught me off guard, because like I just picked this up because I like that artwork, and I should have really paid more attention, because if you look at that cover, like there's blood on her face, and like I didn't realize that. I didn't even realize that until I started reading it, that she literally has blood on her face. And like I just thought there was this like cute looking girl on the cover, and I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. It looks interesting. And I'd seen some of the artwork as well, and the artwork looked gorgeous. And the artwork for the series, dude, is absolutely amazing. This is one of the most beautiful looking manga series that I've personally ever read. The artwork is stunning, dude. It is so beautiful. The artwork for this series is so goddamn beautiful, dude. I think of all the 5 that I read for this video, this has the most beautiful artwork. Unfortunately, it's not my favorite of the 5. That's going to go to the last one I'm going to talk about in the video. That's my favorite, because it's like sci-fi, and like I love sci-fi. But this is a fantasy world, and I love fantasy as well. Like those are my 2 favorite genres, fantasy and sci-fi. And the way the angels are drawn, because there's like angels, there's archangels. There's like 4 or so classes of angels, and each one has like a specific sort of purpose or whatever that they fulfill within this kingdom and whatnot. And archangels are like basically like the top dogs of this world. And Blue ends up running into what is essentially the prince, this dude named Cassian, who is a prince, and she doesn't really know how to deal with royalty, so she kind of like runs up and like tries to take his hand and shake his hand and whatnot. And the other angels or whatever see her doing this, and the thing about Blue is that she has black wings, and that is something in this world that is frowned upon, because the demons have black wings and whatnot, and are, essentially molded from a sort of like dark substance and whatnot. And they see her wings and they call her a demon. And when the people, the townsfolk, see this orphan girl, touch the prince's hand, they kind of freak out and they start throwing things at her. Like one lady throws a tomato at her and tells her like, "Get out of here, demon," or whatever. But Prince Cassian, uses his wing to kind of shield Blue from the tomato throw, and pretty much tells the people not to refer to her as a demon anymore. But like pretty much as soon as he's out of earshot, they immediately start calling her a demon again. And it's super sad, because she's like a really sweet, young girl or whatever. She just wants to help people. Like that's her whole thing. She has like a little wooden sword. This is a real sword here, but in the first part of it, she has like a little wooden sword that says Blue on it, and it's like really adorable, dude. And it's like, why would you want to be mean to this kid? She's just a child, bro. Like she's got no parents. She's an orphan, and like you're just being like super mean to her. Like it's super, super not cool. And I do like it, because she, even though like she just has like this sword. A little bit of a spoiler here. I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilers. I didn't read this whole volume, but I'm not going to tell you what happens near the end of the volume. Yeah, because I couldn't put it down. This one and the last one, I couldn't put them down, dude, so I ended up just reading the whole things. But she uses, at one point in time, this is the part where like it just goes 0 to 100. At one point in time, like Blue likes to read, and she's a big reader. She's like an avid reader or whatever, and she at one point in time goes up to this library, because they have this library, and she's read like almost all the books in this library, and she's looking for a book that she hasn't read, or looking for a book that like she left halfway through or whatever, and she wants to go back to finish reading it. And as she's doing that, she's bringing the book back to the dorm, and when she gets back to the dorm, she sees a giant winged eyeball that is essentially like a demon hovering over the corpses of her, I guess, friends or whatnot, orphanage, other kids in the orphanage. And there's only 2 remaining, which are like 2 of her friends, Nellie and Noah, and then Sister Beth, who is like their caretaker and whatnot, who's also like a pretty young angel. She has 1 wing, and she tries to get them to safety. And Blue grabs her like little sword that she has, and she tries to fight the demon, with her little sword that she has. And it's just like, it's kind of sad, because she's doing her best. She's making an effort, to save her friends and whatnot. But something happens with Blue, and she has a power that is awakened, when she's put into this predicament. That power awakens, and she like basically goes like beast mode, you know what I mean? And just starts like wreaking havoc and taking out angels and whatnot. And that makes people even more afraid of her now, because of this insane power that she has, that she just manifested out of nowhere. And it probably has to do, with her black wings, and she is an orphan, so who knows, what her parentage is, or where she even came from and whatnot, which is something I'm assuming we're going to end up learning, possibly in like the second volume or whatnot. But she does kind of get treated almost like Eren Yeager does, in Attack on Titan, like once it's revealed that he has, Titan abilities and whatnot, people start treating him differently. In this world, once Blue does this thing that she does, and manifests this insane power, this power where like she's able to crush a demon with this wild like big black hand that she manifests. Like she crushes a demon with that power, and she's like an 11, 12-year-old girl, and she has like this insane, like sleeping giant sort of a power within her body. And once she manifests that power, Cassian, starts to kind of keep an eye on her, because at one point in time, he gives her his, Archangel badge, and tells her that one day she'll go to the capital or whatever, to the Citadel, and, take the test to become an Archangel. And when she does, she'll get her own badge, and then she'll give him his badge back. But now he still wants her to do that now that he's seen this insane power. But he's also got this thought that like, if that power that she has that's manifested within her, if that power, ends up overtaking her, that he will put her down. So yeah, it's a wild story, dude. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Like this is, if I hadn't read Search and Destroy, if I hadn't read Search and Destroy and read something else, dude, this would have honestly probably been my favorite read. This is honestly like, this shot like way up too in my top 24 reads, because of how incredible this first volume was. And I haven't mentioned everything that happens in this volume, because there's other stuff that happens too, and I'm not going to get into all of that, just because Obviously, I want there to be things for you all to discover as well when you go through it, but I do want to build intrigue and kind of talk about different things that happen in it to, kind of help to do that. But this is, for me, like, this would honestly be number one if not for the last one, so I definitely recommend. And this was just something that I randomly on a whim picked up. Like, I would have never picked it up, but yeah, absolutely loved it. So yeah, definitely, if you've read this, I'd love to know what you think about it. All right, last one we're going to talk about today is Search and Destroy. So this right here is my favorite manga that we're going to be talking about, just based around the fact that the artwork is incredible. Reminds me almost like of a film. So super well drawn. I love a sci-fi story that has like this really Soviet sort of a feel to it, like dystopian, kind of like Ayn Rand is what it makes me think of, like it makes me think of like sort of like the works that she's created, and it definitely has like that Cold War, sort of aesthetic, and it's super duper well done, man. Like, as soon as I opened this thing and saw like those first like 2 or 3 pages, I knew that there was just going to be something absolutely special about Search and Destroy, and that's why this is the last one that I'm talking about, and also my favorite. I wrote 3 pages worth of text for Search and Destroy, so I think that tells you everything you need to know about, how I felt about this series. So Search and Destroy, written by Atsushi Kaneko, is based on Dororo by Osamu Tezuka. So the way that this story came to exist is that it's like this publication or whatever wanted Tezukomi wanted Atsushi Kaneko to write an adaptation or whatever of one of Tezuka's works, and he had chosen a series that's like a little lesser known, and they pretty much told him to pick something that's newer, or not newer, but something that's like more well known, and he ended up choosing Dororo. And this released from 2019 to 2021 in Tezukomi, which I guess is like a Japanese publication, and this has a foreword by a dude named Federico Anzalone. And I'm kind of surprised that this had a foreword. Like, I've never really run into manga that has forewords, but apparently he's somebody that's done like exhibits or whatever in France. Like, he did an exhibit for Tatsuki Fujimoto at one point in time, so he wrote like a whole intro for this, and that's kind of where I got the background of it, and and how it came to be, and that it was something that Atsushi Kaneko was approached and was asked to do this adaptation, in his own style of Tezuka's work. And another adaptation that I'm a huge fan of is Pluto, and that's by Naoki Urasawa. And that's another one that's really well done, and that's based on Mighty Atom, or Astro Boy as we know it here in the US. But pretty much what Search and Destroy is about is that there is this girl named Hyaku, who is this girl right here, and then right there, that character is Doro. Hyaku is, like, in the original story of Dororo, there's this kid who has all of his body parts essentially stolen by demons, like 48 demons steal his body parts, and in the story of Dororo, like, he hunts down these demons who took his body parts. And in Search and Destroy, our girl here, Hyaku, searches down these demons, like hunts down these demons that took her body parts, and basically, like, goes down the line and kills each and every one of them. Kind of reminds me of like Lady Snowblood, which is a phenomenal film, and even reminds me of Blue Eye Samurai, which I think is like loosely based on Lady Snowblood. But those are both incredible. And pretty much in Search and Destroy, we follow Hyaku as, she's going around and taking back each part of her that was stolen. And the first thing that we're introduced to is Doro right here, who is essentially going to be killed by this like mobster named Kick. And this is like a really lived in world, which is something that like I really appreciate. You know, like I mentioned, the whole Cold War aesthetic of it, and like this post-Soviet sort of aesthetic. Like there was a war, and at this point in time, the war is now over, and there are these beings or whatever, like these machines that were created that are called Creech or creatures. Creech is like the slang term for them, and then humans are called Hues. Instead of humans, they just call them Hues, and there's like a lot of random little slangs and whatnot for these different beings or peoples and whatnot. And Creech would kill human beings during this war, but now it's illegal for Creech to kill human beings. Kind of makes me think of like Origin a bit, you know, in that Hyaku was a human being. Though in Origin, our lead in that isn't a human being, he's an android. But given that there are, you know, these androids that exist within this world and carry on and have jobs and whatnot, you know, it kind of reminds me of Origin, where our lead in Origin, you know, has a job and goes to like a 9 to 5 and whatnot, pretty much. And it's such a wild series. I love that series, but kind of makes me think of that. It also reminds me of Galaxy Express 999, you know, because of the whole thing. Only in Galaxy Express, like, people give up their humanity to become machines, I guess, to like live longer or whatever. And that's a wild film, but it's also like an animated series, and then there's like a sequel film, but I've only seen like the one film, which has like this young kid who joins this one woman, this blonde woman, and I forgot what he goes in search of. Like, I think he goes in search of like revenge against the people that I think like killed his mom or whatever. But I loved the whole aesthetic of it, you know, like Hyaku going down the line and taking revenge on each and every one of these different Creech that, you know, took a part of her when she was a baby. Like, at first, you know, like I said before, you know, we meet this mob boss named Kick, and Kick works for like this politician or whatever, and he's gonna kill Doro, this little kid or whatever, as a part of a bargain with his politician. And as like they're gonna haul Doro off to kill them, Hyaku shows up and takes out the door guard and takes out all these different Creech and whatnot, and it's pretty wild because like from there on it just gets like super violent. Kick at one point in time is just like shoving oysters down his mouth, and they're oysters from France, you know, like I guess, I don't know, they're like going extinct, so he's pretty much gonna like help them finally reach extinction by like just devouring all these French oysters. And that's kind of funny, dude. That part right there was kind of funny to me. But what I do like about this series is that there are definitely fundamental things and almost philosophical things, I guess, like ideas that are presented, or like we meet this gun runner named Gaz who kind of looks like Gary Oldman in The Fifth Element. Like, I'll put Gary Oldman over here and I'll put Gaz over there. He kind of looks like him. Gaz is another Creech who has Hyaku's eyes, and with those eyes, with human eyes, he uses them to like see the beauty in things and see the beauty in things that Creech can't see beauty. And he especially likes to see the beauty in human suffering. He gets joy out of watching people suffer, and he is a gun runner because he loves to see human suffering and whatnot, and he's an absolute psychopath. And then the other dude, Kick, was pretty much using Hyaku's tongue to like eat these oysters and to just pretty much be a glutton and whatnot. And Hyaku takes her tongue back, you know, from Kick, and then later on gets her eyes back from Gaz. But it's such an interesting, you know, premise and whatnot, and like I really want to see where the hell else it's going to go. And it's only 3 volumes. This was the first of 3 volumes, so it's going to be pretty wild to see how Hyaku's going to take on pretty much like 46 more Creech, you know, because they aren't actually demons in this story, they're Creech. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, Hyaku take on all these Creech. And the artwork for the series is gorgeous, dude. It's not as beautiful as Kingdom of Quartz. I think Kingdom of Quartz is just overall had the most amazing artwork of all these series. But in Search and Destroy, dude, the Soviet aesthetic is just absolutely amazing. I've had just so much fun, like pouring through the pages of this series and seeing all the detail, all the love and care and dedication and whatnot that went into bringing Search and Destroy to life. Just even seeing this cover, you can kind of see what I'm talking about, you know, as far as like the Soviet sort of Ayn Rand-esque sort of feel to it. Kind of even reminds me of this game that I played a long time ago called Singularity, which is a solid game as well. If you're somebody like myself that you like sci-fi, revenge, you know, sorts of stories, kind of like a Blade Runner-esque sort of a world, like post-Soviet or even just Soviet or whatever, you know, just these architectures, like, kind of sometimes feels like a film. The blocking is just absolutely wild. It's super well done all around, for this being essentially like an adaptation of, you know, Tezuka's original idea. I think that this, beyond that, is an incredible piece of art. And I haven't read any of these creators' other stories. Like, he has another one called Death Co, which I really want to check out, but there isn't like an official English release for it. So I don't know, man, maybe one day if I can find it in like another language, if I can find it like in Spanish or something. Or, you know, I don't want to read on scan sites because like I actually want to support, you know, these creators. But I don't know, man, hopefully one day we get more of this dude's work in English. That would be so wild. And yeah, I think that's it. That's all I got for you. So let's go down the line and talk about these series. Let's run down the line of these and kind of do a quick summary of each one again. Tank Chair, I really liked this one. I'd say this is probably like my least favorite, though I did enjoy it quite a bit. Brother and Sister. Brother is a vegetable, and he is awakened when he feels people's murderous intent. Kind of reminds me of like Ichi the Witch, you know, where like Ichi has this thing called like death for death or whatever, where like if he feels somebody's like murderous intent against him, like he goes into like berserker mode. Kind of the same thing with this one. Next we got Versus. I really enjoyed this quite a bit. I'm not done with it yet. I'm not done with either of these yet, but Versus is good. Fantasy world, kind of meets like a sci-fi sort of aesthetic as well. We're excited to see where the hell this is going to go. Love won, so I'm definitely excited to check out even more of it. After God, this has amazing artwork. Original idea that I think is pretty solid. You know, kind of like these giant sorts of godlike creatures that, you know, invaded Japan and kind of are all over the place in Japan. There's 6 of them, and each one is kind of like sectioned off. And if you get near them, you pretty much burst into water. So yeah, that's definitely a wild story. And then we got Kingdom of Quartz. This is absolutely gorgeous. This is one of the most beautiful looking manga that I think ever read. Kind of reminds me of Call the Name of the Night, which is another series that I did a video about that a while ago. Beautiful manga. Kind of reminds me of that a bit, but this is a lot darker than that is. Angels versus demons, sort of a story, really well drawn, beautiful setting, just beautiful world and whatnot. The characters are drawn super exquisitely and yeah, just gorgeous. I just talked about this one. So yeah, post-Soviet aesthetic, sci-fi, dystopian, beautiful world. My favorite one of all of these. Adaptation of Dororo. Just absolutely insane. I really hope the last 2 volumes hold up as well. And yeah, this is my second favorite. But yeah, that's all of the series. If you've read any of these, I would love to know what you think about them. If you enjoy what I do here and you want to support this channel further, you can do so by heading over to the Patreon and becoming a patron for $2 a month. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it does support me, and you get your name in this video at the beginning of the video, where I say a shout out to my patrons for, you know, being there for me and for supporting. But again, you don't have to if you do not want to. You just watching and commenting and liking and subbing and whatnot, all that counts. It helps with the algorithm. It definitely means the world to me when people like these videos and when they comment and tell me how they feel about different things, or even just tell me that they liked the things that I had to say. So yeah, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It means the absolute world that you took time out of your day to spend it with me. there's nothing more that I could ask for. So thank you again. Please take care of yourselves.